Oh, I need you to stay. I need you to stay, and you stay.
Hi, hi everybody. Happy Mother's. I figured out what's wrong.
And then
Watch Catherine and her family get over there. He's got her grandboys here. Good to see you guys. Grandma did a good job, didn't she? Amen. Jesus, lover of my soul. It's Mother's Day, and what's exciting to me is I just rolled in after 2.5 weeks traipsing through the Middle East, Egypt, Jordan, Israel, and I get here and everything's taken care of. And they said, all I got to do is get up there and speak for a little while. I think they were saying little. And so I'm trying to keep it brief, but it's so good to be back. We all got back safely, and I'll tell you more about the trip at another time. I will say that, hey, Al, you're starting a new section in your class, aren't you? Yes, this next Sunday. Can you just stand? I know we're not supposed to do commercials, but do a commercial. Come on up here real quick. Because it's a subject I'm really interested in. And can you just give them a brief overview?
Sure. So we're starting next Sunday after church, a Sunday school, adult Sunday school for, be right in this room, right over here. It's 1 hour long, goes from 11 to 12, and it has about a 12 to 15 minute video, and then we do a discussion time, and we really analyze what we just watched in the way of a study. And we're starting it on the 7 letters to the 7 churches of Revelation. So with all of the things that are going on in the world today and the conversation about end times and things like that, This is really an important subject because these are the 7 churches that existed, the key churches that existed at the time. And these are the letters that were written to each of them. And some of them apply to us even today. And we're going to explore what does that mean over a period of about, this is an 8-week study, so it'll be 8 Sundays. So, and I'll miss at least one, so it'll probably take about 10 Sundays.
Thanks, Al. Yeah, having returned from the Middle East, and we were somewhat apprehensive because they were shelling southern Israel and Tel Aviv from the Gaza Strip. They launched 250 rockets while we were there. And so the groups that were supposed to go out that day, they closed the airport for obvious reasons. And so when you're over there, you just realize how vulnerable things are. Because Israel is the keystone for prophecy and the return of the Lord. I won't preach on that today. It's Mother's Day. But one of these days I need to give an update based on that. Now, it's interesting looking at some stuff, what kids have to say about their mothers. And so they did a survey, handed this out, and they asked a room full of 2-year-olds to answer some questions about their mother. Yeah, you're looking forward to that. On why God made moms. The first question is, why did God make mothers? One of the answers, mostly to clean the house. Well, how did God make mothers? God made my mom just the same way he made me. He just used bigger parts. What ingredients are mothers made of? Well, they had to get their start from men's bones. Then they mostly used string, I think, something like that. What did God give your mother? And why did God give you to your mother and not to some other mom? God knew she likes me a lot more than other people's moms like me. What kind of little girl was your mom? I asked the question, I wonder what Carolyn was like as a little girl. Anyhow, the answer was, I don't know because I wasn't there, but I guess she must have been pretty bossy. Why did your mom marry your dad? My grandma says that mom didn't have her thinking cap on the bed. All right, here's a good one. Who's the boss of your house? Mom doesn't want to be boss, but she has to be because Dad's such a goofball. And that's true, ladies. Yeah, there are a lot of evidence for the ladies. What would it take to make your mom perfect? Well, on the inside, she's already perfect. Outside, I think a little bit of plastic surgery. If you could change one thing about your mom, what would it be? She has this weird thing about keeping my room clean. I'd get rid of that. One final one. What's the difference between moms and dads? One child wrote, moms have magic. They make you feel better even without medicine. Isn't that true? Amen. Well, I'd like to talk about moms, but we're also going to talk to the kids and what it takes to raise kids. These are tough times to raise kids. They're not the same as it was in your generation when you were a child. With that, we have the disappearance, almost the disappearance of the traditional family with a mom, a dad, and kids together. The majority of kids born in some of the large cities are with single moms, and everything has changed. And then there are the challenges that our single moms face, single moms in this church. It is so difficult. And I'm going to go to Ephesians 6. This will be somewhat of an abbreviated message. And normally when you go to Ephesians 6, you say, oh, that's the one that talks about how to be a good parent, how to be a good mom, how to be a good husband, good father, and all that. Well, the first 3 verses really talk to the children. And I'd like to start there. Great responsibility is placed on the children and not just their parents. And so many parents, we've talked about writing books. I would write one on how to raise adult children. Because some of you think once your kids are 18, they're gone. They're off the books financially. They're out of your hair and all of that. And there was one of my daughters with finally unknown. And yet, there are responsibilities that go on for the rest of your life. And so many problems develop with children as parents look at their adult children, especially for those that wander away from the Lord. And I picked up my mail, they were holding my mail, and in it was a copy, an initial copy of a book that one of the gals from my church in Michigan is writing because she's dealing with wandering adult children. And the title of it is Parents of Spiritual Wanderers. And the subtitle is Bringing Help, Hope, and Peace to Parents of Children Who Have Wandered Away from the Biblical Faith. And I just started looking at it last night, but I'm so sleepy I don't even know what she wrote. But she asked me to go through and look for editing and this and that. And it's an important subject. So today, watching kids as they go through the decision making. So let me just go to these verses, make a couple of comments about a commandment and a promise. A couple of commandments and a couple of promises. It's in Ephesians 6, verse 1. It starts out, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. The first commandment to the kids is obey your parents in the Lord. Why? Because it's right. Jesus at this time is probably talking about children that are under the jurisdiction of their parents. They're under their parents' roof, and so they need to obey them. Even Jesus, when he was 12 years old, they went down to Nazareth with him, and he was obedient to them. And he did what they said. We see this when he was 12 years old. But as he got older, when he was 30, he turned the water into wine in King of Galilee. His mother somewhat tried to get him not to do it, but he did it. And he said, woman, it's not about you anymore, it's about me. And so he's out of their umbrella of authority. I believe one of the things I've seen is that parents need to not raise kids, but raise adults. Don't raise them to be kids. And as they grow, as parents, we need to give them the opportunity to make decisions while they're kids, even if it's the wrong decision. And they need to learn how to deal with and cope with the consequences of making bad decisions while they're at home. Now, the question is, the word in the Lord. Does that mean what if you have unsaved parents? What if they're asking you to do something that is ungodly? Well, it says, obey them in the Lord. Peter and John were in a situation where they were told to no longer preach the gospel of Christ. And in Acts 4 it said that Peter and John replied, judge for yourself whether it is right in God's sight to obey you rather than God. But while you're in the home, don't throw that out lightly. But if the parents were to ask you to do something that is not right in the eyes of God, then you have to take a stand. But the big issue is, under 99% of the cases, obey them in the Lord and do it willingly. And they ask, well, why should I do that? It says, because this is right. This is right. Obeying your parents is the right thing. Now, we're in a world where they say, well, there isn't really a right and a wrong. It might be right for you and wrong for me. Everybody sort of makes up their own code of behavior. Well, I believe we are all hardwired with a sense of what is right and what is wrong. And the Bible gives us the statement, what is right, what is wrong. And obeying your parents in the Lord is right. Now, it's an interesting thing to watch Jesus grow. Because when he was 12, in Luke chapter 2, verse 52, a statement is made about Jesus. And it's one, I got into it on one of the stops with one of the other people on our tour. And the statement is, and Jesus grew, listen to this, in wisdom, he grew in stature, he grew in favor with God, and he grew in favor with men. Now, if you really put your mind, and there's a world full of people that know a lot of facts, but they are fools. But wisdom helps you to avoid that. Secondly, for me, because I believe that is referring physically, he is growing, okay? But he also grew in wisdom. And then it says, Jesus grew in favor with God. You mean he might not have always been in favor with, yeah, he was always in favor with his Father. But it says he grew in favor. That is such a hard theological one for us to understand. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to skip it. How does that sound? Let me give you a couple of things. When it comes to children, as they grow in favor with God, what I've seen in the church is that there are probably 4 different areas where we see growth. Between the ages of 5 and 10, many, as I did, accept Christ as their Savior. Many will do it in Kids Zone. Many will do it in Awana. And those of the, or church camp or vacation Bible school. Usually that's when the kids come. However, as they enter their teen years, between 11 and 16, with the sinfulness in their life. I mean, they may accept Christ when they're 8, and they don't really realize what a sinner they are. Now, I believe we're saved at a point in time. I believe God chose us. He chose to save us. But as we grow in our knowledge, the kids will grow in their understanding of what sin is. And then I believe between 17 and 29 or somewhere therein, there's a stage out. And so many times they walk away from the church. And yet the Bible promises us that if we will train up a child in the way they will go, when they are old, they will not depart from it. Well, 17 to 29 is not old. And so many times I've counseled parents and said, hang in there, pray for them. Pray for them. And sometimes the sooner they start rebelling, the better. Before they're married and have 3 kids and then rebel against everything. But that happens. And then, at I would say 30 and up, it's take it or leave it time. They have to decide whether they're all in or all not. And that's where we just pray that they will make the right decision. What was interesting to me, and sometimes other people, you hear their testimony, and it's a dramatic testimony. What was so unusual about this trip, in addition to the fact that we had a jumbo bus with more people than we could handle at times, was our guides. And we got to Egypt, and we had something I've never had. I had a born-again believer as a guide. He was an Egyptian, came from a Muslim background, and he accepted Christ as an adult. He couldn't debate the New Testament with no other conclusion. We went to Jordan and had a young man that was a believer in Jesus Christ. Never had that before. Then we were waiting for Israel to see what would happen. We had one of the most beautiful testimonies from our guide. His name was Daniel. His folks were in Poland when the Nazis started flexing their muscles. They moved to Argentina. He was raised in Argentina. And as a young man, he could no longer, by Jewish parents, he could no longer resist the logic and the truth of the New Testament and accepting Christ as a Savior. He actually brought us to his church in the old city of Jerusalem. And we saw the ministry they had. They call themselves Messianic Jews. They don't call themselves Jewish Christians. They call themselves Messianic Jews, so they have a better chance of reaching the Jews and just saying, we found our Messiah. And I was so delighted. We asked him how many Jewish believers there are in Israel now. And he said there are about 300 small congregations and 20,000 Jewish believers in Christ. I love that. I love that. Because when we look at end times, this is where it's moving. And so we grow spiritually. One more thing. Children need to grow socially. It says Jesus grew in favor with man. And parents, as you watch your kids, you need to teach them things. Not just which fork to use when you're sitting at a fine dining place, but how to be kind, how to be polite, how to tell the truth. They know how to lie and be rude. They're born in, it's innate. But we, as parents, that's part of the growing process. And Jesus, you say he grew in favor with men. Did he have to grow in? I won't even try to go into the depth of those questions, but we know that. Anyhow, children, obey your parents. And then second commandment, honor your father and your mother, which is the first commandment with a promise. Well, let's look at the honor, and then we'll look at the promise. It's the attitude behind the obedience. To love your parents, to respect them, to honor them, to support them when needed, to obey them willingly. Society has changed, but the command still stands, honor. I was delighted to see some of the other cultures and how they honor the elderly. Honor the elderly. And there's great respect. When an elderly person came in, they step aside and they honor them. And they make sure that the children take care of the parents and the grandparents. There are a lot of things we can't learn from them, but that is one of them, how to respect them, how to honor them, give them respect, give them your time, give them the support when they need it. Well, those are the commands. Now the consequences. This verse really brings in some unique things. It says, honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise. Okay, what's the promise? Verse 3. So that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on this earth. So let me just take I'll take the easy way through. Promise number 1. How you honor and obey will affect the quality of your life. If you're a kid at home and you choose to disobey your parents, your quality of life is going to go downhill, okay? And yet, if you're a child that is respectful of the parents, life is a lot easier in the home. You may not want to do what they say, but obey the parents. Honor your parents, especially as we sit here this day on Mother's Day, to honor them. It will affect the quality of your life. So with you. Well, there's one more value. I believe that. And I believe as a child, I had to obey for a lot of reasons, and God gave some promises to it. All of that aside, I know it's Mother's Day. I sort of spoke to the kids, but here's the deal. I'm still a kid. And all of you are kids. All of you have a mother. And we just could, my mom is gone. I look forward to that day because there are a lot of things I didn't say to her while she was here. That you ever stop to think about that? Man, I wish I had pulled her aside and really poured out my heart and said, I appreciate you so much. So much. My mom was never in the limelight. She spent about 40 years heading up the toddlers in the church. We never saw her at church. She was always in there with the kids. But my church that I finally led in Michigan, so many of the leaders, including elders, were little kids that she helped minister to and raise. And so she was one of those unsung champions. We have so many unsung champions, ladies in our church, that I get up in front, everybody sees me, but they don't see what's going on behind the scenes. We have ladies working right now. Probably Bella is out there with somebody right now. So that anybody can sit here and enjoy the service. And so we have that going on, and those are just a few. The ladies that made this happen. I think Dave, you're closing in prayer. We're not done, Dave Whitworth. But make sure and bring these ladies out and honor them. They need to have a salute for what they have done. So, I'm done. And I don't know what's next on the agenda. What's next on the agenda, Brad? Singing. Well, I'm certainly not going to do that. Oh. Who's doing that? Cliff? You're just off. All right, okay, guys. I'm done.
In your brochure, you'll find the words that we are going to be singing. And the first one is, I come to the Garden of Eden, and we will be singing all 3 verses. We don't have any instruments this morning. You are going to be the instruments. And so therefore, we're going to, they say, do this a cappella. So Cliff and I are just here to help you. Or start or something. Anyway. So if you find that in your brochure, the first one is, I come to the garden alone. I come to the garden alone, while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses. And he
like to share about your mom or your grandma or someone else who might be a mother figure in your life, if you would like to share about that person and maybe a memory or something, I'm going to start us off. And this time we're just going to have people volunteer. Anyone who'd want to share anything. So I have two, I'm going to share actually one memory right now. If I need to, I'll share that one. But this one is something I like to do with my mom. One of the fun things that we like to do together was on a weekend or something like that, we would put on an old movie and we would do some crafting together, some sort of craft or thing that we would make. And we would just have a great time sitting there in the family room, have all of our craft stuff out, and just enjoying watching those old movies together and just spending time. So that's one of my favorite memories that I have with my mom that I enjoy. Her and my grandma. My grandma just turned 99 this year. Woo-hoo, go grandma. So I'm hoping to go see her soon, but they are quilting up a storm. My grandma didn't start quilting, I think, until she was probably 70-something. She did make dolls before, porcelain dolls. Then she transferred that craft to quilting, and so now my mom and her just quilt a ton. They have a quilt room, and I know some of you can relate with either whatever craft you do. Some people have tons of yarn in their house. Other people have tons of fabric. They have a room dedicated to fabric. Fabric of all kinds. And I believe the motto of a quilter or someone who sews, if you see it now, you must buy it, because otherwise you will not find it when you want it. So, I'm not sure what that means for me, but sometimes we get to go over there and go through some of the fabric, and they're like, we don't want this one. I'm like, oh, cool. My kids get all excited about it. So, that is one of my memories with my mom. So if anybody else would like to share a memory, please feel free to come on up.
I'm going to get up. I'm not going to be as good as Bella was, but happy Mother's Day. My mom is Carolyn Koole, and I have two things to share. The first is that she is a woman, like when you read about the women in the Bible, my mom reminds me of that woman, because she's so full of grace and mercy. I definitely got a lot more of my dad's fiery spunk, but I look up to my mom so much in the way that she's so gracious to everyone. And I think always watching her open her Bible and looking through the pages when I was younger, and it was just so warm because she was so in the Word of God, and it inspired me to want to be in the Word of God too. Also my dad, but my mom especially, because it's really important for women to see, little girls to see their mom reading the Bible. So I try to open my Bible in front of my girls too. And number two, just a mom story. I have a memory of when I was young, I had the stomach flu, and my mom, with her servant heart, was running some sort of jazzercise downstairs with the women of the church. I don't know if you remember this, but she would bring the women of the church and find ways so they were doing a workout in our living room, and I had the stomach flu, and I just wanted to watch them because I thought it was so fun. And then I vomited down the staircase, and so she had to stop it and come tend to me. And it's just the story, to me, it's such a vision of like motherhood. Like we're just constantly trying to take care of our kids. She's serving, and she so graciously takes care of us, and I just am always like wanting to watch her. But yeah, she's amazing. So, and jazzercise, we need to bring that back.
All right, would anybody else like to share? So you want to share?
I think a memory I have would have to be the first time we went to Disneyland, which was not 2 weeks ago, like a month ago, and I went when I was 2, but I didn't remember it because I was 2 and don't remember at that age. And just walking around with my parents, especially my mom, and my mom used to put up with a lot, okay? I have ADHD, my dad has ADHD, we butt heads all the time, and I'm surprised my mom still puts up with it. So yeah, she's very strong because me and my dad argue and are sarcastic with each other all the time. And she has to be in the middle of it all the time. Because if anything happens, we just turn to her and go, Mom, fix it. And she always does. Or she'll just look at us and go, you fix it yourself. You're grown. But yeah, Disneyland and having to put up with my dad. And also my grandma. She had to raise him. The poor woman had to raise him and my uncle. They're not saints. They're not. So they're very strong. And my great-grandmother, because she had to put up with him too. And she had to put up with my grandmother. And neither is my grandmother a saint. But I love you. You are not the nicest when it comes to certain things. School. You're making me test on the last days of school. Who does that?
Someone who loves you.
Yeah. Alright, I'm done. Or else I'm going to ramble for hours. Take us back.
Alright, Jolivet, do you want to come share something? Jolivet really wanted to share something last year and she didn't get to. So, I'm not exactly sure what she's sharing this year. But let's remember that she's 8.
Okay, what I wanted to share is about what my mom did to make this happen. She did it to make all the moms here feel how much they've been working for everything and how to take care of their kids.
Would anybody else like to share something about their mom, a memory? Anything?
I feel like I need to defend myself. I agree, I agree.
The first thing I want to share is that the song we just sang was my grandmother's favorite. And I can remember going to, her house was like an escape. She lived 7 blocks away. I put some clothes in the basket of my bicycle, ride down there, and 3 days later my mom would call and say, are you coming home anytime soon? But she knew where I was, and my grandma made Jell-O jigglers before there was such a thing. She'd use 2 boxes of Jell-O and enough water for 1 box and make really thick Jell-O. We'd put whipped cream on it and watch old movies or listen to Nat King Cole records. But when the opportunity to talk about God or this song came up, then we had good sharing. So that was a great memory. In my defense, Sophie is the one who asked me a year ago when I retired if I would homeschool her.
In my defense, I didn't know you were making me test on the last day of school.
And you know, grandmas play a strong role in their grandchildren's lives, and I appreciate Pastor saying that you never stop raising your children. I wish I'd known that a long time ago, though. But you help raise your daughter-in-laws, you help raise your sons even into adulthood, and especially if you're in a situation where they live with you, which is my case right now with Katie and Stephen and Sophie live with me, and it's great. And I do homeschool her, but there's also then this balancing line that you walk of, are you parenting or are you grandparenting? And it just takes a lot of prayer and hiding in your bedroom sometimes to survive it. But it's a different world than when I was growing up and you got married and you moved out and you never thought for 1 minute about going back to live at home, but things change and you just roll with it. And so my encouragement would be that if you, any opportunity you have to help your adult children, your grandchildren, whatever it is, pray and seek the Lord for wisdom, but the answer should be yes, that you're going to help them. So